Okay, let's go ahead and get started. Good morning, everyone. We're so glad you're here. Let me go ahead and take this down here. Thank you for joining us today. And my name is Donna Miller, and I'm the CEO and co-founder of Purse Power. And Purse Power, of course, is working to help women use their massive purchasing power to drive positive change. Please do introduce yourselves via chat. Let's talk to each other and say who you are and what you do. And then we'll go ahead and have a networking session on October 1st where you can live get to know each other. I'm so delighted that Nadine Vogel is here today. Especially she is getting over COVID. I hope that's okay that I told everybody that. So I'm just amazed you're here. It's awesome. She is the CEO of Springboard Global Enterprises. And we're in webinar format today so that we can go ahead and tape the program. And we do have 1,000 people watch our shows after the fact. Let's see here. Let me go ahead and tell you about Purse Power quickly. If this is your first time here, Purse Power is working to help women use their massive purchasing power to drive positive change. We believe that if women who make 80% of all purchasing decisions would choose to buy from the companies that actively promote women, and we would do that in mass, and if we could create a funding stream for battered women's shelters in the process, that we could shatter glass ceilings and change lives. So that's what we're trying to do. We started these calls to try to connect you with each other, connect you with national experts like Nadine to give you some insight and some knowledge during this pandemic. I want to shout out quickly to my shareholders who are on the call. So Jean Kelly, Lynn Harden, Lou Kerr, Jennifer Grigsby, thank you specifically for being here. Appreciate it. Okay, so I'll introduce Nadine, give you a little bit of her background. Please share your comments as she's talking during chat, and then we'll get to the Q&A a little later. Just go ahead and use the Q&A block to ask your questions because that's where we're going to be looking. All right, Nadine is the CEO of Springboard Global Enterprises, which is home to Springboard Consulting, Disability Mama, the WIP Group, and the Springboard Foundation. And she is working to with people around the world to mainstream them in the global workplace, workforce, and marketplace. Just a wonderful cause. She's also the producer of the world-renowned Disability Matters Conference and Awards Gala. Disability Mama empowers, celebrates, and educates moms and dads around the world who are parents of children with special needs. And she's also the author of Dive In, Springboard into the Profitability, Productivity, and Potential of the Special Needs Workforce, and is a regular contributor to all kinds of magazines. She's got a list here. It's amazing. She's also on the board of a number of organizations and foundations, and a founding board member of the Society for Diversity, a multi-year membership of the SHRM's Workplace Diversity Panel, the Women's Business Enterprise National Council, the Women Presidents Organization, which of course I used to be a chapter chair myself, and the National Speakers Association. So Nadine, thank you so much for being here. You are amazing, and I appreciate it.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. I'm so excited.
It's going to be a fun conversation. Okay, so let's go ahead and get started. We want to get to know you. So please tell us a little bit about your background and give us an idea of how you arrived at this place in your life and career.
Absolutely. So let's see, so I'll start with Springboard and work backwards.
Okay.
Springboard's been around for about 16 years. Prior to that, I spent over 20 in corporate America as an executive. I was chief marketing officer, I had all different roles over the years in financial services, and before that in advertising. I am married to my childhood sweetheart. We started dating, we were 14.
Oh, wow, you got me beat. My husband and I were together at 16.
Ah, see? I have two adult daughters. They are 30 and 22, and my 22-year-old has more mild disabilities. My 30-year-old has significant disabilities.
Okay, okay. So that's the passion then. Okay. Yeah. All right, so tell us more about that, the impetus behind forming Springboard Global Enterprises and your vision for the company.
So it's an interesting, I'm kind of an odd story. I was working for MetLife at the time. I had started a division of the company years before that worked with families who had children with special needs on planning for the future, legal issues, financial issues. I had designed the division. After I think the third year, it became the most successful division in the entire corporation.
Wow.
And I had been reporting to our CEO at the time, Bob Moshe. And so you guys can't see me standing, but I'm 5 feet tall on a good hair day. He stood about 6'4". And I was on the elevator. He walked on the elevator and he looked down at me and said, Nadine, you know, when you wrote the business plan for this division, how come you brought it here? Why didn't you start your own company? And I said, hadn't thought of it.
Thanks for giving me that.
I'd always been in corporate, had my MBA, I was, corporate, right? And he looked down at me and he said, well, that was really stupid, wasn't it? And he walked out, doors open, he walks up the elevator. So that got me thinking, which is always dangerous. I would not leave until he left. That was for sure. But 2 years later, I went to his retirement party on a Monday. I turned my resignation in on Tuesday. I started Springboard on Wednesday. And then he went on to become CEO of AIG. And then AIG actually became one of our first clients.
Excellent. Excellent.
And I never looked back.
Fantastic. Fantastic. So what is the difference you're trying to make with this company in the world?
So as you mentioned, we have a number of different companies under the umbrella, right? But the primary one that we started was Springboard Consulting. And with Springboard's mission is to mainstream people with disabilities in the global workforce, workplace, and marketplace. So as candidates, as employees, as customers. And it is global. We operate in over 40 countries around the world. And with the work that we do, when we say mainstream, when we talk about equity, it doesn't mean treating everyone the same. It means giving everyone the same ability to be successful, to do whatever. So that's really our mantra. Disability Mama works to promote and celebrate special needs moms all around the world. The WIP group is about women, influence, and power. So completely separate from that. And our foundation provides scholarships to college students with disabilities.
Very good. Very good. Well, you and I were talking about the fact that COVID is causing a lot of disabilities. I mean, people are anxious, they're fearful, also the physical ramifications of it. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, so what we've seen since the onset of COVID is a dramatic increase in mental health related disabilities, anxiety, depression, folks that were not outwardly disabled in some way before are now as a result. The other thing is that, they're saying about 10% of COVID, folks with COVID will be long haulers. And as a result of that, it's been said that this might be the greatest increase in people with disabilities in decades. I mean, since polio, right?
Wow.
In thinking about that, though, there's also then those long haulers are having physical ramifications, right, beyond just the psychological. And so companies really need to start thinking about this because the EEOC has now said that COVID is a protected class under the ADA. Now, that does not mean that everyone that has COVID is going to get an accommodation or anything like that, but it's the way in which COVID will manifest itself long-term, similar to someone who has diabetes or pregnancy. In and of themselves, they're not disabilities, but they can be protected under the ADA. So we need to really think about what does that mean for our businesses and how are we going to think about this a little bit differently? Some people are anxious because they're still at home. They want to be back in the office. Some are anxious because they have to go back to the office. So it's not one size fits all in any way, shape, or form.
Boy, and some of my clients too were planning on bringing people back and are now struggling with doing that.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I've had, it's interesting. I've had a number of keynote presentations and every day it's back and forth. Is it on? Is it still on? Is it going virtual? What are we doing? And every day everybody's evaluating because you don't know.
Yeah. This is not one of the questions I had for you, but I'm going to ask it. So as an employer, I used to be in HR for 30 years. What are the things that employers need to be doing to prepare to bring people back, given all of this?
So, there's a few things, right?
Yeah.
If you think about disability, let's just start with disability in general. If you think about someone who is deaf and reads lips, and you're going to mandate masks, how are they going to read lips? Well, there are masks now that are made where the piece around the mouth is clear, right? We need to think about that should be then the mask of choice because we don't know who's going to need to read lips, right? That's just one. Right. If someone typically holds on to the back of someone's arm because they're blind, how do we renegotiate where meetings are and things so that person may not have to do that? Because how will you stand 6 feet apart if you're doing that? Right. On the other hand, as people are home more, they're having trouble, negotiating their own time management, especially if they have anxiety and, always being on. So again, it's not a one size fits all. What we have to understand is that there are certain things we will have to do to prepare generally, right? But at the same time, we have to understand that more people are probably going to need reasonable accommodations. They may be for people who didn't need them prior to COVID, or they're different than what they needed before. And so we have to make sure that our HR folks in particular are really trained and have the tools and the wherewithal, because as always, who does everybody go to? HR, right? So we need to make sure that our HR folks really have the tools and the wherewithal. Even just things like work from home policies. In the past, companies had work from home or telework policies separate from disability policies. Well, now, how do they interact, right? How do they intersect with one another? So we have to think about that. We really need to reevaluate all of our policies and procedures and make sure they're appropriate for the current situation.
Whew. Wow. You're so needed. You're so needed right now. Okay. So it's said that when businesses are most successful when they focus on a niche, and you kind of have focused on a niche for personal reasons. Can you talk about niching as a business? Pardon me, and the best ways to determine which niche you ought to be serving?
Yeah. I just find everybody wants to be everything to everybody, and you can't boil the ocean, right? We can't, I guess you can be, but you're not going to be good at any of it, right? So if you want to have a business and be meaningful, relevant to the people that would hire you, you need to show that you have an expertise, right? What makes you different? I always say, do that which others can't do, won't do, or don't know how to do.
I love that.
And then you add your personal passion to that, right? So for me, obviously, disability, and even my other businesses, they all touch on disability in some way. That's what I know. I know better than anyone. But, you can know something and be good at it and not be passionate about it. Passion has to be there as well. I'll give you an example. I've spoken with folks that have children with disabilities, and like, Nadine, I spend morning, noon, and night dealing with it with my kids. The last thing I want to think about when I'm working is disability, right?
Sure.
So that's okay. So it's not passionate about the work. But, there's so much noise out there. How do you separate what's real, fact from fiction? How do you separate the experts from who's not? As a result of COVID in particular, and people losing their jobs, you have people hanging their shingles out saying, I can do anything, right? And there are people that, yes, have the skill sets, but also there are some that are not. I'll give you an example. I've had companies come to me and say, Nadine, we're doing a program on, race and racial equity. Can you help us? Well, if it touches disability specifically, so race and disability, and then that piece I can help you with. The rest I can't. That's not my expertise, but I have to be willing to say that, right? So it's important to have a niche. Now, when you have a niche, that just doesn't mean that I'm going to come to you and say, I just do disability. I have to prove to you that I am the expert in the niche, right? I think, Harvard Business School and the Harvard Kennedy School have published cases on the work we've done. We have developed curriculum for European University in Rome, and then I teach there a few times a year. Unfortunately, lately, I don't get to go to Italy because of COVID, but I still get to do that, right? Sure. I have a published book. We have had TV shows, including on Bloomberg TV. I write, how do we prove that we are the expert in that niche? Right. But the thing about having a niche is that's how you'll get noticed, right? Because otherwise you're just part of the noise. And do you really want to be that? I don't think so.
Yeah. Good point. Great point. All right. So you're a powerhouse for disability in the global workforce, workplace, et cetera. Please walk us through your evolution as a company from the start of the company through to today. And particularly, would you focus on your challenges and how you overcame them, and your triumphs and how you achieved them?
So I'll share a funny story. When I first, I had spent 20 years in corporate, and I'd risen the corporate ladder. I left as a senior vice president. And I remember, I think it was my second or third day. And I was sitting at my beautiful new office in my beautiful big desk, and my husband came to take me out to lunch. And he walks in the office. And I'm literally standing with my hands folded, just kind of staring out the window. And he says, Nadine, what's the matter? What's going on? I said, I just realized I have nobody to call. And he's like, well, what do you mean by that? And I said, I realized that my whole career had been in financial services primarily. And although a piece of it was disability, like, that's not who I need to call now. And he was just like, you should have thought of that before you left and left that paycheck behind too, right? And I was like, oh my goodness. But what I remembered very quickly then, and I wish all of you to remember this, if you're going to go out on your own, evaluate what you did in a corporate role. What were your skill sets? And what I realized is one of the things I did, I was a keynote speaker for the company. I was in the media all the time. Mm-hmm. I was always out there. And I thought, well, why aren't I doing it now for myself, for my own company? So I started contacting. So by the second week, I already had an article published in the Wall Street Journal. Like, I was
fantastic.
Out there. So it's identifying. So, realizing, okay, this is a problem, but take the problem and turn it into an opportunity, right? Mm-hmm. So that's number one. The other challenge was I realized, although I had started businesses, they were all inside a larger corporation where I had staff. I had all these people to help me. At that point, I was me, myself, and I, and, I was yesing myself to death, but that didn't mean it was right. So I formed an advisory board very, very quickly. I called it my dream team. And they were made up of a few people that I knew that had been very successful entrepreneurs. One person actually had been an executive coach. So I put people together that I thought had the skill sets and the background that I didn't have. Mm-hmm. Help me think through things. So I will say that those two decisions that were both made like within that second week of business made all the difference in the world. The third decision that I made was that I realized, again, managing a P&L within a large corporation is different than downloading QuickBooks and starting to manage that and legal documents. So the other thing I did very quickly was I hired someone a CFO, mm-hmm. right? I hired someone to do the financial and someone to do the legal. And although I really didn't have the money to do that, it was money well spent because I would have gotten myself into trouble. Yeah. So those were like three things right at the beginning I had to do. The mission that I shared earlier, to mainstream people with disabilities in the workforce, workplace, marketplace. That has been the mission since day one. Has not changed for over 16 years. What has changed is initially I was just focused on US. But what happened was very quickly I'd have chief diversity officers and chief marketing officers say, Nadine, my remit, my responsibility is global. Please don't tell me I have to find a springboard in every country I'm going to go work in. So we quickly ramped up and partnered with a law firm that was in about 50 countries and focused on disability and really got the knowledge and got the people so that we could serve everyone that way. So those were some of the very early learnings. I would say from there, it's trial and error, meaning one, you do have to trust your own intuition. And I know for women, that's really hard sometimes, especially if it's not something we've done before, but you have to learn that your intuition is right. And if it's not, you're going to pivot really quickly, but most of the time it's going to be right. And once I learned to rely on my intuition, I didn't make as many, small mistakes. And, I made a mistake where, we were really successful. And so I'm like, oh my gosh, we need to hire more people. And I hired too many people too fast. Right. So then I scaled back, but it's been an amazing journey. I have to say, I have the most amazing clients. And the most amazing employees. I will tell you that you guys will laugh. When I have an employee who I see is really going to connect and click with us, I tell them they're signing a marriage contract. It's till death do us part.
Nice.
And so I will tell you, my global COO has been with me for 14 years. Wow. My CFO has been with me for probably 15 years. My marketing person, people have been with me a really long time, and that makes a huge difference in your success, right? Because it's not just me, it's the team. And for our clients, our corporate clients, to see that consistency is also really important to them.
What's occurring to me, obviously, is it's a big deal if you make a mistake, particularly as a small company. So how are you making sure that they are a fit for you, that you will have this long-term relationship? You're doing something really right around that.
I don't I don't interview in a very standard way. And I didn't even when I was in corporate. You get the person's resume, which is fine. You need to make sure they have the skills. But for me, it's more about, let's have a conversation. Talk to me about who you are outside the office. What do you love? What do you hate? What do how do you get frustrated? Like, I need to understand who you are, because I can tell by that if this is going to work or not. And because of interviewing that way, I've actually had folks say to me in the middle of the interview, you know what? I can already tell this is not going to be for me, which is great. I'd rather know now. One of the biggest challenge I will say that we had relative to interviewing or to hiring is that everyone at Springboard comes from a corporate executive role. Our clients are corporate executives, right? For the most part. So we operate as if we were a large global corporation, even though we're a small business. So I found that there are people that are very uncomfortable with that. If they want to work for a small business, it's because they want to work for a small business for all the things that, more casual, more laid back. You don't have the crazy deadlines. You're not like boom, boom, boom. That's not how we operate. We operate as if we are, a Goldman Sachs kind of thing. And that's important to our clients. And I find not everyone, I've had people say, well, if I wanted that, I would go work for a large corporation. Right.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
And we feel strongly too about, you have to be able to laugh at yourself and laugh at others and not take it personally.
Yeah. Fair enough. Well, it's interesting. I've also seen people coming out of the corporate world not be used to doing whatever it takes to get the job done as a small business. You don't have the resources that you did in a big company.
Absolutely. It's like, what do you mean I can't take off tomorrow? Well, we have a big event and there's nobody behind you.
It's all us.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay. So I wanted you to tell me more about your successes and challenges too, that you had to overcome.
Yeah. So, I think the challenges were just kind of knowing when to increase or increasing too much. We have always said yes. We never say no. We still, for the most part, will say yes, but it's a cautioned yes now. Before, even if I didn't have time, we were just loaded up, I'd say yes. I was afraid to say no to someone or say, I can't do this work for 2 months. Like, we can do it, but we're backed up. That was a learning for me, that I could actually say we're backed up for 2 months and that I wouldn't lose the client, So just being very transparent, I think, is really important. I think sometimes we're afraid to do that, but at the end of the day, we're people. We're all people, and we have to be able to do that.
Yeah.
I think the successes, we have an event called Disability Matters. It's an annual corporate conference and awards gala. We started the very first one after being in business 4 months.
Wow.
It was a 3-quarter day event. We had 67 people. Today, we have been running the event now for 16 years. We have one in North America, one in Europe, one in Asia. We have a few hundred people, and it's a 3-day event with a gala. And, so it's building on successes. And that's what I also want folks to know, is that, I'm one of these people, I want everything perfect the first time. If I want a big event, I want a big event the first time. But I've also learned sometimes it's better, just like in corporate, to pilot and then to build on the successes.
There you go. All right. Well, what do you wish you would have known at the beginning of all this, and how would you have prepared yourself given what was to come?
What do I wish I would have known? I have to be honest. I'm not really sure that there's things I would have done differently. And I only say that because with some of these mistakes that I made, that I've shared, these learnings, I've learned from them. And because of that, we became a better company.
Yeah.
I would say, if there's anything I think I wish I did really differently, it would have been to trust my intuition sooner and take away the fear factor of, oh my God, I'm going to charge too much. Oh my God, I'm going to make them mad because I'm telling them they have to wait 2 months to do the work, or, those kinds of things. So I think that combination of eliminating the fear and trusting my own intuition much sooner would have definitely helped.
Yeah, boy, fair enough. Yeah, me too. I'll assume that the other person's right all the time when sometimes I need to listen to my own thoughts. Yeah.
Exactly.
Okay, so with COVID driving the challenges for women, which are significant, what are the most effective strategies you've seen some women using to try to balance all of this? You know, the feelings of isolation and fear and anxiety and kids and education and everything.
All of that?
Yeah, all of that.
All of that. You know, I'm going to equate it. I'm going to come back to that. I'm going to equate it to when someone is evaluating an employee with a disability. And I just heard this again yesterday from someone. You know, it's great, I want to hire, but then if they're not performing, you know, then I'm worried that I won't be able to manage them out of the organization. And what I always say to them is, at the end of the day, it's about performance. The other stuff is fluff. The other stuff is noise. It's about performance. Can the person perform the job with or without an accommodation? If yes, the rest of it we can figure out.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to answer your question in the same way, in that, what is it you're trying to accomplish? Focus on that. The rest of it we can accommodate in different ways. Mm-hmm. So I'll give you an example. We did a number of workshops for families that have children with disabilities when the schools were shutting down. And the kids were at home, right? Just like the other kids, you know, with school. And people were like, oh my God, they're working in their bedroom. I'm in a small house. It's not effective for them to sit in their bedroom all day. I can't keep an eye. And so we help these families understand how to convert other spaces, even if it was a garage, you know, in the warmer weather, but how to convert different spaces and what to do to give the kids the feeling that they were in school, right? Create a mock desk, create different things. For the kids with disabilities, you know, the families were very concerned that the kids were going to regress because they weren't getting their occupational therapy, speech therapy, physical therapy. What are we going to do with that? Well, we utilized interns. So students that are learning to do that were more comfortable and could do it via Zoom and could help with some of this, right? So there are things that there's always options. Mm-hmm. The problem is we get overwhelmed by throwing it all on our head at one time. You can't boil the ocean. You just can't, you know. So from a work perspective, if you feel that you need to work earlier hours or later hours, you can't be on necessarily the way you were from 9 to 5. You need to inform the company about that. You're still getting the job done, right? At the end of the day, it's about getting the job done. Mm-hmm. It doesn't really matter in most cases how you get it done, as long as you do it, right?
Or when you get it done.
or when. And if there is a deadline, so let's say a deadline does come up and it is important that you get it done. So then for that particular week or for that particular 2 days, whatever it is, you have to look at the picture and say, then what will not get done? The problem is we want it all. You know, I'm the queen of the Queen song. You know, I want it all. I want it now.
That's you.
That is my theme song, right? But at the end of the day, I do realize that sometimes things have to give. I'm a big list person, huge list person. So I have everything on a list and I have my list divided. Work stuff, you know, stuff for my kids, family, personal. You have to make sure whatever your mode of exercise is or relaxation, you do it every single day. And you know, my challenge is if I can't get out of bed in the morning and say, oh, I'll do it later, I can guarantee you it will never happen. If I don't do my exercise, bike, gym, whatever, you know, at 6 a.m, it is, no matter how much I wish it, it's not happening. So you all have to know yourself and be honest with yourself to say, either I'm only going to do this 3 days a week, and that's okay. And that's your measure of success. Or I really am going to do it 7 days a week, but then don't beat yourself up when you don't get out of bed. It's also, for me, I always have vision boards. During COVID, my vision boards changed. My vision boards always change, but you have to have, you know, for me, that's important. I'm very visual. So having objectives is fine, but putting it on a board that I can see, and it keeps me honest with myself. Right?
Oh, that's great. Please describe that, by the way. I'm very familiar with what you're talking about, but other people may not be. Could you talk about your vision board and what you put on it?
So my vision boards have changed dramatically. So I will give you an example. My vision board when I started my company was I had, I took a mock bank statement and I put what I wanted to see in that corporate bank account by the end, right? So I put it out there. I knew who I wanted as like my first corporate clients. I got their logos printed them, put them on my vision board, right? And I had them on a mock, something that said contract. And it said, this company and Springboard agreed to. So whatever it is you want to have happen, you have to make it happen. And I know that sounds like, foo-foo a little bit, but for me, it's what I put out there is what's going to happen. If I say something negative, my brain doesn't know the difference if it's true or not. So I got to keep what I say out there. And by the way, everyone at Springboard knows that. They know not to have any negative words publicly because it's in the air. And if it's in the air, someone's going to catch it.
I love that. Yeah. Yeah.
That's just something that's important to us. So the vision, and then as I achieve whatever's on the vision board, I take it off and I add something else.
I love it. I love it. And the field of positive psychology, by the way, as you well know, if you focus on what you want, you get more of what you want. If you focus on barriers and problems, you get more of those. So
absolutely. I mean, when I wanted a boat or I wanted a sports car, I mean, all of those things went on that board until I got them.
Very good. Very good. All right, you guys go ahead and put your questions in the Q&A block and I'll ask one more and then it'll be your turn. So in your book, Dive In, Springboard into the Profitability, Productivity, and Potential of the Special Needs Workforce, you make the business case for hiring people with disabilities. Please talk about that.
So, companies, it's interesting. Companies talk about they need innovative employees. They need employees that work, that, aren't out all the time. And it always amazes me that we have this large segment of our population, actually the largest minority in the world.
Wow.
And companies don't recognize, because they can't see past someone's disability, that person is innovative, actually more so because of their disability, not in spite of it, right? Because if someone, depending on the nature of the disability, will do things very differently. And we might say, oh, no, we don't want it done that way. But if you try it, you might find it's actually more effective. Right? So that's one. The assumption is people with disabilities will be out more because of sickness, because of illness. Disability is not an illness. Okay, that's number one. People with disabilities are so appreciative that they have the jobs. Their absenteeism is actually better than average typically, as are the retention numbers. So if you look at what every company is saying they need today out of an employee, we have in this pool. We also have companies that will say, well, but we need people who are college educated. 11% of college freshmen year over year are reported to be students with disabilities. That's a self-reported number, so we know that number is probably actually higher.
Wow.
So these are excuses. Right? They're excuses, and sometimes companies just fear how to engage with people with disabilities. They don't want to look stupid, do something wrong. I go to shake your hand, you have a prosthetic device. What do I shake? Right? But that's why we do disability etiquette and awareness training. It's actually the #1 global best practice and almost always the first practice. For HR, there's tools, there's all kinds of things we can arm people with to do this right. The cost of an accommodation, that's another one I hear. Well, the cost of accommodation in this country is less than $350 on average.
Be specific about what you mean there. I know what you're talking about, but
accommodating someone with a disability to be able to be successful at work. We think, oh my gosh, we're going to have to change the whole office. We're going to spend thousands of dollars to retrofit. Well, first of all, under ADA, your bathroom should be accessible, right? It has nothing to do with that individual employee. But we have many employees, including my own daughter, that need no accommodations. Think about someone who's aging and has carpal tunnel and needs a special kind of mouse. That's an accommodation. Right? Well, that doesn't have anything really to do with someone with a disability. So again, we have to get rid of all of these, what used to be myths, I think are now excuses. There's enough information out there that it's just an excuse. And companies are doing a lot with unconscious bias training. But I believe when it comes to disability, it's conscious. I don't believe people are trying to be mean, but based on their own life experiences, they may not have engaged or worked with someone with a disability, but we have to own the bias if the training is going to make a change, right? If it's going to make a change in our behavior, we have to own it and accept it so then we're willing to change. I like to call people on that a little bit because you have this large, loyal population of people. We have a silver tsunami going on with people aging out of the workforce.
Yeah.
Right. Now we have people not wanting to work because of COVID issues. You have all these people. Why aren't we hiring them?
Yeah, no, I think, and it's been a difficult issue to address, hasn't it? With corporate America,
It has been. And here's what's really interesting. COVID, actually, it's interesting because if you had someone with a severe disability prior to COVID who said they wanted to or needed to work from home, telework, sometimes they get met with, no, we can't do that. Everybody has to be in the office. Well, what do you know? As a result of COVID, everybody's working very effectively from home.
Sure.
So people with disabilities have been doing that a lot longer. They've been using the technologies a lot longer than a lot of us do. So they're actually more effective in this telework environment. So it's just interesting.
Very, very good point. Okay, guys, if you have questions, sometimes I'm shy about questions, please put them in the Q&A block. The thing that's occurring to me, I've got triplet 21-year-olds. So, and in talking with a colleague of mine, those kids, these new entrants to the workforce, a lot of them have anxiety issues. And I know as an HR person, the whole mental disability thing was a really hard thing to know what to do as an employer. Can you talk about that?
Yeah, we, it's interesting that the number one request that we have had probably in the last maybe year and a half now is around our mental health training and mental health programs. And, we're not trying to make employees mental health counselors, but we do need to help folks understand what the signs are and the language, even the language, committed suicide. No one intends to hurt themselves. No one. If someone died by suicide. Right? There's a difference. There are accommodations. If someone comes up to you and says they just returned from the hospital, they had a heart attack. Oh my gosh, what can I do for you? Can I send a meal? Someone comes back to work and says, I just returned from the hospital. I actually was experiencing a nervous breakdown. You run for the hills, right? You do.
Don't know how to respond. Yeah.
Right. And so we have to start equating and understanding that health, whether it's physical health or mental health, is still health. And one is just as important as the other, and one impacts the other. And so we have to recognize that, it's not like the media portrays, someone's just going crazy or whatever, right? It's about experiences, and we don't see mental health issues, right? Because mental health issues are feelings typically. You can't see someone's feelings. So we make assumptions, this person's lazy, this person is cranky, whatever, but it has to do with the way they're feeling because of their mental health. So, we have lots of training around how to recognize the signs, how to interact, how to accommodate, because it is important. The other thing is someone will come back from a mental health leave and you'll say, oh, how you doing? I'm great. Well, just because they say they're great doesn't mean that it went away.
Right.
Any disability for that matter, right? Oh, glad you're back. Okay, back to work. It can't just be that. And what I'm finding is with COVID in particular, I heard a manager the other day say that one of their employees approached them about needing some leave relative to COVID. And he said, oh my gosh, we've been down this road. It's like almost 2 years already. I mean, some of these people just need to get over it. And I thought, wow.
We got some work to do.
If that's going to be the approach, that person's in trouble, right? As is that company that person works for. But I do think that people are getting tired of COVID, in that there's new variants, we're back and now, oh my gosh, we're not back. Everybody's in the stadiums. Now they're saying there's going to be, a whole nother strand as a result. So people are just tired, I think, of the yo-yo. Like, we just need to get better and be done, but we have to recognize that we're not in control of that.
Right.
We're not in control of it. And so we have to come up with ways to, I hate to say embrace it, because nobody wants to embrace COVID, at least if it's me. But we have to, or we're not going to be mentally healthy.
Yeah. Well, you're making a really, really good point. You're making a good point. Okay, let's see here. So it just a couple more questions, and then I know we need to wrap up early with you. So you were the subject of a couple of business cases for the Harvard Kennedy School and the business school. Yes. What were the insights that the students were gaining from your cases?
So it was interesting. So the one at the Kennedy School came first, and that was more focused on me as a woman business owner And the transition's kind of like some of the things we're talking about today. And it was part of their senior women leadership program, I think. So it was about 50 women from very senior women from all over the globe, actually, that were participating.
Wow.
And I think the thing that came out of it the most for them, and this just is a result of the conversations we were having, is really understanding their own power and how to recognize it, and then how to utilize it in a way that, you know, people aren't calling them the B word, or, you know, right? Because that's still out there. How do they do it in a way that works for them and works for others? And how do they embrace that? So I think that was, and, you know, it was interesting for me because these were senior women. These were not women just first coming out of college, right? And it was disheartening in some ways that we're all still at this place, right? That we still need to learn how to embrace that. The business school case focused on the company, and they interviewed everyone at the company. They interviewed clients. It was, they interviewed, oh my gosh, they even interviewed my old employers. It was actually fun.
Wow.
And that, I think the learning there, that was second year MBA students that were involved with that when I was teaching that class. And for them, it was really understanding what's your North Star? What's your true North Star? How do you identify your North Star? And how do you do it now in your 20s, right? Versus waiting until you retire. And, you know, we hear about people retiring and then they find their true North Star. So how do you do it early? How do you figure out what that really is? And, you know, from a business standpoint, how do we put that? Is it the corporate route? Is it the government route? Is it my own business route? How do we bring all that together? And so we had some really interesting discussions. And for me, it was just fascinating to hear their perspectives. What Harvard does with these cases, which is kind of an interesting experience, is the cases get published and then they get taught internally in the classes. And so they read the case, they know everything about you or your business, and then you come in.
Oh, wow.
Right. So they're just like boom, 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 asking questions, right? And it's like kind of creepy because they know so much about you already. And they analyze you, and this is what I think you were thinking, or you should have been thinking. It's actually
wow.
You have to be really cool with yourself to do and comfortable with yourself to do this, right? Sure. It was a lot of fun.
Well, that's amazing. All right, I realize you've got to go here pretty quick, so I'm going to ask our closing questions. So please tell me, what do you most want people to have learned from you today?
Oh my gosh. I guess a couple of things. On the disability side, that people with disabilities are people first. You know, the disability may be an integral part of who they are. It impacts them in a variety of ways, whether by age or military service or accident or illness. But at the end of the day, it's only a piece, like race or religion, right? It should not define them. So to treat people as individuals first and foremost, that would be on that piece. In terms of starting a business or being a women business owner, trust your intuition. I guarantee you know more and are better and have more ability to be successful than you give yourself credit for. And what you need to do is, if that's the case, especially, build yourself a dream team. Surround yourself with people that will help elevate you, whether personally or professionally, as opposed to folks that drag you down.
Oh boy, isn't that true? Absolutely, absolutely. The people, what do they say? You are the product of the 5 people you hang around with most.
Yep,
right? So hang around with great people.
Absolutely.
Wow, okay. All right, so you gave us a couple of actions, but are there any other actions you want us to take?
So if you work for a company, please go to the Springboard website, www.consultspringboard.com, and see how we can be of help to you in any of these areas. You want to know more on your own, dive in. You can certainly get the book. You can order the book on the website, or you can go to any bookstore to order the book as well. And I think that, you know, the other takeaway that I'd like you all to do is, whether it's tonight, tomorrow, sit down and really think about what you want out of life. Business, personal, doesn't matter. And start that board. Start that vision board for yourself. And if initially it's just drawing on a piece of paper, or it's actually cutting things out of a magazine. I want you all to do that. I guarantee you it will change your life.
Wow. Wow. And I've known about this for years, but I don't have one. I need one. They're good for you. That is, yeah. All right. Is there anything else you want to say? Anything else you want to add before we close it up with you?
I am just so grateful for you interviewing me. Purse Power, this is so important what you are doing. And we need to make sure that everybody around the world is aware of your podcast and the coaching that you do, because you make a difference in women's lives and we need more of you. So thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. All right. I'll have you the link a little later on in the day. And thank you. Go ahead, and why don't you go ahead and sign off, and I'll just finish up. Okay.
Okay. Thank you, everybody. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye. Okay. Terrific. Well, I hope you enjoyed that program, guys. She is wonderful, and her initiatives are wonderful. We need to support people like her. I just want to let you know what's coming up. So on September 17th, Holly Hotchner, she's the CEO of the National Women's History Museum, is going to be on. I'm excited about that. And then on September 24th, Dr. Terry Neese, the CEO of the Institute for the Economic Empowerment of Women, is going to be on. And she has been working with the women in Afghanistan for 15 years. And I'm very interested to find out what we can do as women to support her and support the women in Afghanistan. October 1st, we've got our networking session, and that's where you can meet everybody in person. And then we've got an amazing speaker coming up on October 22nd. We actually have Gretchen Carlson coming on. And she, of course, is the woman who really got the whole sexual harassment discussion started. And the movie Bombshell, if you haven't seen it, her character is in that movie. So she's amazing, and she's trying to have corporations not use any NDAs to stifle women's ability to talk about sexual harassment. So very excited to have her coming on. We have some new services on our website that allow you to get a snapshot report of how your business looks in cyberspace. So please go take advantage of that. Nan McKay with Trailblazers Impact. And by the way, she takes our broadcasts and she rebroadcasts them as podcasts. And she's got a whole nother series of female leaders. If you haven't checked out Trailblazers Impact, please do that. She introduced us to Kim Walsh Phillips of Powerful Professionals. And I've been following her guidance, and we took our followers on Facebook. I hadn't focused very much on Facebook. I've been on LinkedIn, from 950 followers to over 11,500 followers in 14 days, following her guidance. And she has got a Launch Academy live program that's in mid-October that's going to teach you. I know we've got a lot of consultants and coaches on our broadcast that watch our broadcast. And she teaches people how to take their knowledge and turn it into a course that then generates revenue kind of around the clock. So if you're interested in learning more about that, hopefully this is going to work. I'm going to go ahead and put a URL in the chat room. Please take a look at that. Honestly, guys, I'm learning so much from her, and what she's teaching is really important. And I know one of the frustrations of female business owners is, how do you get visibility? How do you generate revenue? How do you make people aware of you? And I think she's got this thing down to a science. And I think you can really learn a lot, and I'll be there. I'm going to learn a lot too. Let's see here. Please remember to buy from the businesses on the Purse Power directory from women-owned and women-led companies. Please like and share our social media pages. Really appreciate it. We want to get the word out. And let your friends know about this webcast that we do every Friday at 10 a.m. Central. So we're going to end a little early today, unless there's any final comments or questions. All right, everybody, I hope you have a terrific week. We'll see you next Friday. And remember, Purse Power, we have it. Let's use it. Take care.